Hi there, nice to see you. Now, you may remember yesterday we were telling you the story of Teddy Hulston, Britain's youngest ever organ donor, who was just 100 minutes old.
Yeah, when he died, and then he was able to donate some of his organs. Well, since then, the Daily Mirror reports there has been a 378% rise in the number of people signing the donor register, which is just fantastic news. And the decision on whether to donate organs is a subject that our next guests have also faced. Ilse and James Fieldsend were asked that question when their 3-year-old daughter suddenly died. That's her little brother there, Joshua.
Being very excited about being on the telly. Good morning. We are now raising awareness through the release of a new song dedicated to Georgia. So let's have a look at her story. Georgia was a healthy 3-year-old on holiday with her brother and parents in Egypt. But whilst playing with her mum on Christmas Day in 2013, she suddenly collapsed. She had a brain aneurysm and doctors said there was no hope of recovery. Georgia's parents were heartbroken, but decided they would donate her organs. That decision saved the lives of 4 children and the sight of 2 men. In the wake of Georgia's death, 2 young girls who are close to the family composed this song and performed it at her funeral. The money raised from its release will help other sick children and no doubt highlight the importance of organ donation.
Well, Ilse James, along with George's little brother Joshua and Dr. Hilary, join us now. And what was lovely watching that footage was every time he saw his big sister, he was shouting out her name, Ilse. And obviously, as difficult as it is, it's lovely that her memory is living on with her little brother.
It is. Joshua knows the song, he sings it, he knows it's about his sister, he knows it's to help sick children, and he knows it's about a little boy, which is him, and it's great. It's a song that was sang at George's funeral by Sophie and Ali Booker-Ingram, and they came to the hospital to say goodbye to Georgia, and they composed it. They sang it live at the funeral. It was beautiful. We got it re-recorded, and my plan is to ask the country, but actually the whole world, to buy a copy. It's less than £2. It all goes to charity, and I'm trying to raise awareness with it. And there it is again.
The video.
And quite a lot of relevant information. I've set up a Facebook page which is called Georgia Loves Joshua, which I think would be nice for when he's older as well. It'll always be there, and that's got all the information about everything. Georgia Loves Joshua Facebook page. That's got all the information.
You've been so practical and so proactive about turning this into something as positive as it can be. But it must have been appalling, James. I mean, I could see you're emotional still then when you were there, completely out of the blue, faced with the situation with your daughter, and then having to make that decision.
Absolutely. I mean, Joshua is the person who gets us through every day, and
right.
Joshua was the person who got us through that decision. Because when you're stood there, you say to yourself, and you look at him and say, well, as traumatic as what we're faced with, what would we want if we were in this position with Joshua and we were looking for a transplant and reliant upon somebody having donated an organ? And of course, we would want to grab that opportunity. And so that, in a way, made the decision that little bit easier. The second factor, really, for us was, whilst she's there and they're ventilating her, so her heart's still beating, so she's warm and she looks alive. She was, at the time, brain dead, so there was no prospect of recovery. And you have to somehow project yourself beyond the immediate sort of vision of her in front of you and say, well, she's not going to be here in 3 weeks' time. So you've got to sort of detach yourself and say, well, let's try and benefit somebody else, because whilst we need immediate support in the future, somebody else is going to need it.
I mean, I think one of the moving things for me was when I was reading about your story is that, well, one of the many moving things is that when you made that difficult decision and she slipped away, there were 2 children there waiting to have their lives saved. I mean, that image, was that a help, or what was that for you?
I mean, before Georgia's life support had to be switched off, we knew that she was going to save lives of 2 children that very same night, which was New Year's Eve. And personally, I probably couldn't have let the doctors switch the machine off if I didn't know that. I mean, it gives an enormous amount of strength. It was a very, very strange feeling, which is undescribable. But, you know, turning something off where your child's heart stops beating, is just the most horrible thing you can go through. But the strength that she's going to save other children out there, other lives, was so powerful that, you know, we felt like, go Georgia,
Absolutely.
you know, go and do it. And we're trying to get the message out there for people to consider it and think about it, because we were in utter shock at the hospital, and that's not really a time to have such a conversation. So if you do it in advance, it just makes that a little bit easier.
As difficult as it is, because of course you never wish that event on yourself. It's a tough conversation to have, but it's a place to have it outside the intensive care unit. That's the time when you can then make a proper rational decision, think through the consequences, and have the time to reflect.
Hilary, we were talking about little Teddy yesterday, of course, and the big difference was not that it's any easier a decision to make, but Teddy's parents knew from 12 weeks that Teddy wasn't going to live, so they could, as James say, come to the decision of what they were going to do. But what the lovely thing is to read this morning in the paper the increase on the organ donor register, which I'm sure is great for James and Ilse to hear as well, and that's still hugely important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, Ilse and James's decision was much more, well, it was different, because they didn't have very long to prepare for what happened and make this decision. And hearing what Ilse says and James says inspires me. I am in admiration, huge admiration of what you've done, the way you've faced up to it. I think it's enlightened, I think it's courageous and inspirational. And thank you. And Georgia's gift, her donation, has saved the lives of 4 other children and the sight of 2 young adults. And that is just an amazingly positive outcome from such a tragedy. So I thank you for doing that and raising awareness, and it's something we need to keep doing, because you know, we hear about these things occasionally in the media, and then there's a surge and people say yes, I'll do it, and then they forget to sign up or tell their relatives. We need to keep that momentum going, and you've been very helpful in doing that. Thank you.
I like that too. It could even be something that maybe it's taught at schools, universities, a little bit like your sexual education lesson. It could be a lesson about blood donation, organ awareness, so that as a student it might just stick. I mean, I'm doing talks at several schools. I've done one at Tring Park School on Wednesday morning, to talk in front of students, to tell them about Georgia. And I've literally had parent students emailing me that they've signed the register, you know, they're now organ donors. So it's making a very
not just, but it's not just helping other people, it's helping you, isn't it, as well?
It is. It's my kind of therapy, and in a way it's my way of still being Georgia's mum.
It's fantastic.
Because
and it gives her a presence.
Yes.
Because for us, the world has been deprived of her, but it gives her presence, and other people can then benefit from it.
Look, it's been lovely to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
You've got a little bundle of energy there that obviously rules the roost, and crucially, I know still thinks very fondly of his big sister as well, which is lovely to see as well. Thank you for coming.
Could I just thank just a couple of people, please? I'd like to, of course, thank Sophie and Ellie. Without them, there wouldn't be a Georgia song. And I'd really like to thank you, Julian Close, Ian Colonel, Andrew McKay and Jamie Hobbs, because without them there wouldn't have been the video, everything that's coming. So the actual whole video will come out next week. And Fiona Locke, who's, to be honest, she's held my hand throughout. So lots of other people out there, but they have... We are now called the Georgia team, because they're really making this happen for us.
That's wonderful. I know you would have started many, many conversations. You can in a minute, Joshua. In homes everywhere this morning. Yes, you can.
Joshua,
you can go now.
I work with Kate all week, and I feel very similar, let me tell you. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in, and best of luck with it all as well.